Next on Arizona 360, seeking asylum at Arizona's border.
There was so much emotion. Almost everyone I talked to cried while they talked about what they were going through.
Plus, school districts begin deciding how much to raise teachers' pay.
Are their hands tied specifically to give money to a certain group of teachers? No, they're not.
And training truckers in Mexico to be better drivers in our state.
We want the roads to be safe as those trucks go into Arizona.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thank you so much for joining us. This week, dozens of immigrants from Central America walked up to the DeConcini Port of Entry in Nogales, Arizona, and requested asylum. The men, women, and children say they are not part of an organized caravan and had made the trip north to escape violence in their home countries. The Nogales International newspaper in Nogales, Arizona, was among the first media in the United States to report the story. We begin our coverage with reporter Kendall Blust.
One of my coworkers had been in Nogales, Sonora during the weekend, and she was coming back across, walking through the DeConcini Port, and she saw a group of several dozen people waiting outside. Men, women, children, mostly women and children. They were sitting against the walls of the entryway to the port on cardboard boxes, on blankets. And, you know, my first impression was really just wanting to know what had brought them there and why they were waiting for so long.
What did they tell you about how they had gotten here and why they came to the port of entry in Nogales?
They all talked about extreme poverty, the problems. You know, a lot of them work in subsistence farming, and there's drought, there's some other issues that are causing them to not be able to produce as much as they used to, and that's made it hard to make a living. They said they're having trouble feeding their families, that it's causing violence and robbery, and a lot of the women talked about family violence that they were fleeing as well. So they all were talking about a lot of extreme situations, and they'd all left their homes individually for the most part, maybe with a neighbor or a friend, but decided to come to the port to ask for asylum, and had traveled in various ways. One mother had taken buses for 7 days. A father who was there with his 2-year-old daughter said he'd been traveling for 25 days. And they were hoping that they will be able to ask for asylum and get refuge in the U.S. People had heard different things. One mother told me that she had heard that the U.S. was giving mothers and children asylum until the end of May, and that after that the program would end. And so she said she had wanted to get here as soon as possible in the hopes of crossing the border and uniting with her cousin who's living in Virginia.
Did you get the sense that these people understood the gravity of what they were asking for and seeking asylum?
Yes and no. They know that they have to show that they're in need, but you know, to receive asylum, you have to show that you will be persecuted based on certain characteristics. And I'm not sure they all understood the requirements for what they'll have to prove in order to actually receive asylum in the United States.
You also communicated with the children who were there with their parents. What did they tell you about this experience?
The parents talked more about how tired and exhausted the kids were and how hard that is as a parent to see. The kids are like any kids, you know, they were playing or napping. They had one stuffed doll that they kind of seemed to be sharing among the group. And like any other kids, they were tired and sad. Some were crying for food and water, but others just were curious. They wanted to look at my camera or, you know, show me what they were eating. The 7-year-old boy I talked to was saying that he knew just that he was coming with his mom to the United States, that he was happy to go, but I don't think that they understand the full situation.
What have you learned about where these families plan to go next? I mean, some of them will be processed and questioned, others will be turned away.
Some members of the group, as you know, are going through the port. They're asking for asylum, and they hope that they'll be released during the proceedings to go stay with family members who live in various parts of the United States, from Florida, California, Virginia, while they await their proceedings. That's their hope. Others had come to the port, and they started arriving as early as 8 o'clock a.m. on Saturday morning, and By Monday morning, having not been able to enter the United States, one woman told me she thought about 50 people had decided to leave, either to try to enter the United States at another port or possibly to try and cross through the desert.
Customs and Border Protection would not comment specifically on this group of migrants, but in a statement said in part, CBP processes undocumented persons as expeditiously as possible without negating the agency's overall mission. It goes on to say the number of inadmissible individuals CBP is able to process varies based upon a number of factors to include case complexity, resources, medical needs, translation requirements, and holding detention space. Regarding children, the Department of Homeland Security said in part it does not have a policy of separating families at the border for deterrence purposes. Among those arriving at the border to request asylum is a transgender immigrant. Nancy Montoya is tracking one woman's journey from Honduras, a country considered one of the most violent in the world by the United Nations, especially for women and the LGBT community. We pick up her story in Mexico.
She sits in a woman's shelter right across the Arizona border in Nogales, Sonora. Nicole is in her early 20s, but she was born Dago Alberto Garcia, a male in Honduras. Nicole is transgender and tells us to be a woman or a transgender person in Honduras is to expect sexual assaults that often end in death. I want nothing more than to be safe, she says. In God's name, yes. She says she was raped several times in Honduras. It took Nicole weeks to make the journey from Honduras through Guatemala. She traveled by train, bus, and foot through Mexico City, Culiacan, and finally Nogales, Sonora. Exhausted, out of money, and nearly out of hope, she made it to the women's shelter in Nogales, Sonora, where she was able to sleep and refuel for her ultimate goal of gaining asylum in the U.S. This will be her third attempt. The day we met her, she was ready to take those final steps out of Mexico and into what would await her on the U.S. side. Now, it's important to understand what women in Honduras and their transgender sisters are fighting for, and why so many of them, like Nicole, have fled their country, many with their children in tow. While in Honduras, I met Sueva Martinez, the head of the National Women's Coalition in Tegucigalpa. One day in 2017, she and other women activists protested at the presidential palace. During other protests, the women tell me, they were dragged off by the military and beaten. But today, there are international journalists watching. The women had a message for the rest of the world.
From all of us, we are calling out to the international community so that the eyes of the world can be turned once again to Honduras. They are killing us here because we are women. It is the most dangerous place to be a woman.
Today in Honduras, groups of women are taking to the streets to draw attention to what has become a cultural norm. But some, like Nicole, who are transgender or gay, live in hiding. 3 transgender women she knew in Honduras were raped and murdered. I don't want to go back, she says. I asked what would happen. She answered, I would not live to say. She is hoping the U.S. will grant her asylum. U.S. immigration officials have turned her away 2 other times, each time deported back to Honduras, where she says she was again beaten, raped, and one time left for dead. The Migration Policy Institute estimates that only around 5% of those who seek asylum will ever get to the point of even filling out an official application.
Of that percentage, 60% are denied. Those are the people who actually made it to a full application.
Tucson immigration attorney Jesse Evans Schroeder says asylum seekers like Nicole have a nearly impossible road ahead of them.
So what should happen is that she should be screened. She should be questioned about whether she has a fear of return to her home country. And obviously, this woman who you've been following would express that she does have a fear, and at that point, she should be referred for an asylum interview.
Evans Schroeder says even getting that far is monumental. Most people cannot prove credible fear. This time, Nicole says she is prepared. She compiled police reports, hospital reports, eyewitness accounts, and even newspaper articles about what she has lived through, hoping this time someone will listen and she can get to the next step. And this time, there is a team from the Keno Border Initiative that is also following her case. Volunteer Bob Key and staff member Marla Conrad have been trying to find Nicole within the complicated immigration system after she stepped into the port of entry. An online immigration locator said that she was here at the Eloy Detention Center. Conrad says immigration often randomly moves individuals around.
This is the third time that she's asking for asylum. The second time, because she is a trans woman, she was placed into isolation for over 6 months. Yeah, and there's no protections that I know of that are for trans women.
Key and Conrad have since learned that Nicole was moved to El Paso and is now in New Mexico. Arizona Public Media plans to follow Nicole's case. Asylum is her goal, but for now, there is only uncertainty.
According to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, as of January, the agency had a crisis-level backlog of more than 300,000 pending asylum cases. Rachel Wilson is an immigration attorney in Tucson and a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. From her, we learn more about how the system currently processes cases. If you would give us an understanding of people who come to the border and are requesting asylum, what does that process entail?
Yeah, so first what happens is they're interviewed by a Border Patrol official there at the border just to get some basic biographical data. Then they're taken into immigration detention where they will wait for what's called a credible fear interview to see if their fear of returning to their home country is credible. And in terms of being taken into detention, it's important to realize that people who present themselves at the border are subject to mandatory detention. And right now, with a recent change in the law, those people don't have a way of challenging their detention. So unfortunately, we're in a situation right now where asylum seekers present themselves at the border and they can be detained for years now because there isn't any law that limits the indefinite detention that they're subject to.
How do you show that you have a credible fear? Are there criteria you have to meet?
The credible fear is based on the person's story because you can only seek asylum if your fear of returning to your country is because of 5 specific reasons. And that's because you fear persecution based on your race, your national origin, your political opinion, your religion, or your membership in this mushy category called a particular social group. So if you come to the border and say that you want asylum because, I don't know, your brother's trying to kill you because he's angry at you because you slept with his wife or something like that, you're not going to qualify for asylum because you're not seeking it because of one of those 5 reasons.
Once you are in detention and waiting for a time before a judge, is that accurate?
Yes, exactly.
Can that take months or years?
It can take months, it can take years, yes.
So this person is essentially in legal limbo waiting in a federal facility.
Exactly.
It's fair to say there are people from all over the world in the United States seeking asylum. Mm-hmm. When you go to an immigration judge, what if he or she says you don't meet that criteria?
If the judge says you don't meet that criteria, you basically have to make a decision. Do I want to risk it and return home, or do I want to appeal the judge's determination? And you can appeal the judge's determination. Again, that's difficult and takes several years. And if you're detained, you might very well stay in detention that entire time.
And if the judge does grant asylum, what happens after that?
Then the person is released and they are eligible for help from refugee resettlement agencies. They can get a little bit of help finding work and that kind of thing. But they're basically on their own to make a new life here in the United States.
You mentioned that there are people who are in the United States currently, albeit with undocumented status. Then they could have a run-in with immigration and then at that point request asylum?
Yes, that's also possible. So if you come to the attention of immigration authorities in some fashion, one of your defenses to deportation is to ask for asylum.
In communicating with a journalist who covered this story down in Nogales, she said there were some families who were unclear on what this meant. They were told to come to the United States with their families and that they would be granted asylum, but also some of them said, I think we're just going to try and find another way. That happens.
Yes, that can happen because the system is so arduous, particularly if you come with children and you're separated from your children. It is an arduous process. So I could definitely understand. However, if people are facing death back home, you're stuck between two very bad choices.
Do we run the risk of people who are not meeting those 5 categories, but looking for some sort of temporary removal from their country, and they are seeking asylum because they know this is potentially a safe haven for a time being?
There are people who undoubtedly come to the border seeking asylum and won't eventually qualify for asylum, but the hurdles for getting asylum are so difficult that I honestly don't feel that there's a danger that people will be let in who don't meet the criteria or who don't, let's say, deserve it. Because there's such a prolonged period of time in detention, because they're separated from their families, because the situation can be so expensive if they do hire a lawyer. I cannot imagine someone doing this just for the heck of it. You go through this situation if you have no alternative.
2962.
As schools prepare to let out for the summer, districts are now tasked with deciding how to allocate new dollars from the state into teacher salaries. We reached out to several districts in southern Arizona about their plans and got a better sense of the different approaches being considered. A few districts, including Catalina Foothills and Tanque Verde, hadn't decided how to distribute the funding or didn't get back to us in time, while others, like Sahuarita and Altar Valley, said teachers would get raises of at least 10%. Most districts we heard from also plan to offer smaller raises to support staff. Governor Doug Ducey touted this as a 9% raise for educators. The actual figure, though, ultimately comes down to where they teach and how many students attend their school. For a deeper understanding, we turn to Chris Cotterman, Director of Governmental Relations for the Arizona School Boards Association. He joined us from Phoenix. Last week, I spoke with Governor Ducey, and he said there would be consequences for districts that did not follow the spirit of the law. Can you elaborate on what that really means?
Are their hands tied specifically to give money to a certain group of teachers? No, they're not. By law, they can allocate the money as they see fit. However, the legislature did express his intent. The governor expressed his intent. That intent language is in the budget bills. And school districts that do not abide by that intent language would, of course, face a lot of political probably backlash for not doing as the legislature intended, including, perhaps having future allocations directed more specifically by the legislature, which can get administratively burdensome, getting unelected by their communities who feel that that money should go to teachers. I mean, there's a wide range of consequences, but certainly all elected officials, including school board members, should understand the political realities in their communities.
The Auditor General's office can actually track these dollars to ensure that they go where they're supposed to go. Have there been instances in Arizona where a school district has been penalized because a school board decided not to direct those dollars where they were intended to go?
In instances like this, no. I mean, the intent language is there to guide school districts. The money comes in as a lump sum. You can't really differentiate exactly which dollar is for a salary increase versus which dollar was there to begin with in the first place. So where the Auditor General comes in is we agreed as part of the budget process that there should be a reporting requirement on this money. School districts will have to publish what their average teacher salary was this year and what it is next year. And there should be an increase there, and it should be manifestly close to 10%. Or 9% if you get technical about it, for next school year over this school year. And if that's not there, then school districts will face questions about that.
Down here in the Tucson Unified School District, arguably one of the largest in the state of Arizona, the superintendent has already said that it won't necessarily go just directly to teachers. There's an intention to spread those dollars. Is he putting the cart before the horse when he makes that sort of announcement? Because there's a process. He has to communicate with his board.
Correct. I mean, it all depends on what the relationship is between the superintendent and the board, right? I mean, every board and superintendent relationship is a little bit different. Certainly, superintendent is empowered to make whatever statements he or she feels necessary, but it is good practice to have the backing of your governing board before you make those statements. Otherwise, you could end up with a decision that doesn't comport with what it is that you said was going to happen, because ultimately the governing board, by a majority vote, approves what the budgetary allocation is.
Is it really true that teachers will get a 9% raise this next year? I mean, is that accurate?
The amount of money that was given for teacher pay is really an educated guess as to the number of teachers that are in the state today working and what their salaries are based on data that was submitted last year. So when you say there's enough money for 9%, if you narrowly define it, then there's pretty close to enough money for 9% for every teacher. But if you broaden that definition, as most districts I think want to do because they think it's the fair thing to do, then you start to dilute that money a little bit. But the biggest thing is there's really no way to guarantee from a state level that every teacher or every staff member of any kind receive a certain percentage of raise based on their current salary. Because the way the formula works is per student, and you can't put in a uniform per student amount and also make sure that every employee gets exactly a 9% raise, say, on their own salary, because there's a wide range of salary arrangements throughout the state by design.
The Arizona School Boards Association is working very closely then with districts across the state to ensure that teachers get as close to a 9% raise as possible. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, we have distributed information to our members that says, you know, we recommend that you use a definition of teacher that is as encompassing, I think, as it can be, in that a teacher has a teaching certificate and spends 50% or more of their time in the classroom. That was our recommendation. Districts should use the resources given to them to try to get as close to 9% as possible for that population of teachers. We understand that maybe not every district will make it there. The governor's office understands that, but the important thing is that districts make a good faith effort to plow as much resources as humanly possible into teacher pay, because that's what the legislature intended.
Chris Cotterman from the Arizona School Boards Association, thank you so much for your time. Back to the border now, where each day hundreds of commercial trucks travel across the border between Arizona and Mexico. An initiative from the Arizona Department of Transportation aims to cut down on wait times at the ports. And it's taking state instructors into Mexico, where they're teaching a crash course in safety and compliance.
A warehouse in Nogales, Sonora doubled as a classroom for more than 24 drivers and mechanics learning how to get their truck through safety inspections with ease. A 2-day course with a test at the end is designed to cut down on time spent idle. At the ports of entry in Arizona.
How are you doing today?
Tom Herman is a public information officer for ADOT.
Do you speak English and Spanish?
We developed a training program so that the truck drivers would know exactly what we're looking for. Our bottom line here is to be safe. We want the roads to be safe as those trucks go into Arizona. We also don't want to hold up the trucks any more than we have to.
Herman says last year the state heard from drivers and trucking companies about long wait times and inconsistent inspection procedures at different ports. In response, ADOT retrained inspectors and standardized the process. It also created a border liaison unit responsible for conducting training courses at convenient locations in Mexico.
We've gone down to Hermosillo. We're going down further into Mexico, into Sinaloa, to reach more drivers and more companies.
Muy bien. Since launching less than a year ago, about 350 people have enrolled in the 2-day class, with several hundred more getting similar training at half-day courses offered at the ports. Ramon Arturo, a mechanic, plans to share what he learns with his coworkers.
So in a shop, you have to be vigilant about everything.
It's not just you. You have to be taking care of others, teaching them.
For the government of Arizona to send their people to teach us, this is a great gesture on how we can live better together between two countries.
Jose Durazo owns the warehouse hosting this class and 2 others in the past. He says the program improves safety for Americans and Mexicans.
Our families as well travel to the U.S. They travel in Mexico. We don't want anything bad to happen to a loved one in our family. So then, yes, we take care. As drivers, we take care that we have qualified people to drive in this type of business.
Safety is the main driver. But the training has an added benefit of boosting Arizona's trade industry.
We have all these warehouses here on State Route 189 and throughout Nogales. They do better business if those trucks come across the border 2, 3, 4 times a day rather than once or twice.
The fastest I have been able to get through the inspections is about 40 to 45 minutes.
Marco Antonio Gonzalez crosses the border 3 to 4 times a day. Gonzalez passed the course and says he now knows what to check for when doing his routine inspections.
Sometimes you'll find there's a hole, a hose broke, or some other problem, or some other detail that could have come up as the day progresses.
They don't have to go back across the border for repairs. They can fix their trucks before they come here. Tremendous savings in time and money for the trucking companies. And that's good for Arizona because those drivers are going to now come across the border here.
To be more efficient in the way that they
Jaime Chamberlain agrees. His company is based in Nogales, Arizona, and imports produce from Mexico.
We're competing with other states all the time for business, and ADOT understands that they are a critical part of that economic development and that economic viability. We used to have wait times before the border liaison unit of anywhere between an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes, sometimes 2 hours to cross the border. And now we've cut those wait times to less than half an hour.
Herman says demand for the training remains high in Mexico with plans to expand down the road.
We're trying to reach as many as possible to make this inspection process efficient and boost the economy, both of Arizona and Sonora.
And that's all for this week. We welcome your thoughts and suggestions. Send us an email at arizona360@azpm.org. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.